This show is brought to you in part by viewers like you who joined a Patreon or become YouTube members. Thank you. And if you could, hit the like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content.
Or Shador. All right, let's jump into hot takes. Let's listen to your hot takes that you have left in my comment section over the week. We're going to start with John, who says this in reaction to my Andrew Berry Jags GM video. Says, hell of a find, Q. This trade was an AB masterclass that may look really bad in 10 years, but the process was sound. That's the thing about this trade, right? Right now, on paper, a lot of this looks to lean in Cleveland's direction. I say there are two things that will massively impact how this trade is viewed, right? Obviously, there's the performance of Mason Graham and Quincy Junkins and whoever they draft in the first round next year. But really, it's going to depend on just how good of a player is Travis Hunter. Because if we go through the NFL right now and we ask ourselves, how many quarterbacks are worth, non-quarterbacks, my bad. Non-quarterbacks are worth 2 first-round draft picks, especially 2 first-round draft picks with one of them being in the top 5. You might get Myles Garrett. You might get, I don't know, who else is in there? Pat Surtain? Maybe Pat Surtain. And then, like, Justin Jefferson, some of the best wide receivers in the NFL. And maybe you can justify it with 2 first-round picks, right? Like, that's how good you have to be in order to justify moving 2 first-round picks for a player. Like, there's not a lot of players in the NFL right now you would trade 2 first-round picks for, especially a top 5 pick and a potential top whatever pick next year, because Jacksonville's not guaranteed to be a good team. So the first thing that needs to be asked is like, hey, is Travis Hunter going to be in that class of player, right? Or is he going to be like, I think Travis is going to be good, but there's a chance where Travis is like, kind of like what Trevor Lawrence is at quarterback, where Trevor Lawrence is a good quarterback, but not a good enough quarterback to justify the draft hype that surrounded him. And there's a chance that Travis could be a good player, but you look at him and you go, there's no way I would have traded 2 first-round picks to get him. You know? Like, would you trade, if you were a team not Cleveland, would you trade 2 first-round picks for Denzel Ward right now? It's a serious question. I don't know the answer to that. Like, I don't know. Like, think about how good of a player you have to be in order to justify that. And that's really what they're asking Travis Hunter to be. Like, even if you had high expectations for Travis, those are lofty expectations. Now, a lot of us, because Cleveland made a draft trade, we're just going to assume that Cleveland's going to be the failure on this part. But I don't know if I'm super quick to assume that, because, again, it's not like Jacksonville has a history of fleecing people in the draft either. Like 2013, 2012, we both messed up, right? They took Justin Blackmon. We took Trent Richardson. So, like, you know, their history ain't that different from our history when it comes to this kind of stuff. The Browns can brown as much as the Jaguars can jaguar. So, yeah, I think that part of it is a very aggressive bet from Jacksonville's general manager, right? And then the other part of this that can completely flip it, even if Travis Hunter is a great player, is if the Browns use that pick to get a quarterback. And that quarterback ends up being, you know, one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the NFL or 12 best quarterbacks in the NFL. If the Browns get that, the Browns win the trade, no matter how good Travis Hunter is, right? So those 2 outcomes are the things that would make us look back in 10 years and go, yeah, I would do that trade over again. If you're Jacksonville, if you're Cleveland, if Travis Hunter is one of the few players in the NFL you would actually trade 2 first-round picks for, maybe even more. Like Myles Garrett, you could get 2 first-round picks for Myles Garrett, but I wouldn't trade Myles for 2 first-round picks, right? And if Travis is that good, then okay, they win the trade, you know? But if the Browns get a quarterback, a top 12 quarterback out the deal, then nobody's going to look at the Browns as a failure in that trade either. So a lot of this depends on, what happens with the players involved, of course, but also what happens with the pick. Do the Jaguars have a good year this year? Or do they have a down year? And maybe Travis is good later on, but that gets the Browns 2 top 5 picks, and that puts the Browns in a situation to be successful. There's ways you can win this trade. There's ways you can lose it. And, the losers and winners sometimes aren't that obvious to spot. Case in point, the Texans trade they made to get Will Anderson and C.J. Stroud in the same draft, they did that with the Arizona Cardinals. Everybody was assuming the Cardinals won that trade immediately. Just called it a heist of the century. And now we're looking at that trade and going like, man, like the Cardinals really haven't done much to justify this trade. Look at how good Will Anderson is. Look how good C.J. Stroud is. They, before that trade, the Texans were a bad team. Now they're a perennial playoff team. It's going to be something to look at. It's going to be something that's going to be interesting to see. Safranic says, there is no situation in which the Browns did not win this trade. In order to justify all the compensation that Jacksonville paid, he would have to plant guys like Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, supplant guys like Justin Jefferson, Puka Nacua. That just isn't going to be the case, in his opinion. I wholeheartedly believe Mason Graham is going to be a Pro Bowl defensive tackle. And Q is our starting running back, depending on the development of one of the other rookie quarterbacks. We have extra first-round picks next year. It's ammunition to go get our guy. Then not to two, Andrew Berry fleeced this young GM. And I think that's what Andrew Berry was thinking when he was making this move, right? Andrew Berry was like, hey, they really value Travis Hunter, so much so they're willing to trade 2 first-round picks for him. And we're not a team that can say no to 2 extra first-round picks. And I think that was a huge part and why the Browns eventually said, yeah, we'll do the trade, right? I think there is a belief that this can benefit everybody, that they get Travis Hunter and we get our quarterback out of this, or really we get ammunition to put around the quarterback. We get the flexibility we need to rebuild quickly. Tracy says this, as a Browns fan, I want the best for the starting Browns quarterback regardless. I do like Shedeur Sanders and feel like he has the highest upside. But if they feel like he's the long-term answer, give him time to develop. We have Pickett and Flacco to handle the starts. No reason to rush Shedeur or Gabriel. As long as these guys show something, we could use our first next season in talent to support them. I think the Browns' idea scenario is that they end this season and they aren't desperate at quarterback. If the Browns can get to that point where they can look at the roster and say to themselves, hey, look, if we fall into a generational prospect in the top of this draft, of course we're going to take a quarterback. But anything outside of that, we should be free to use these picks however we want it, because we believe in the young quarterbacks that we have to be able to hold it down and bridges over, at the very least, bridges over to, whatever draft class is going to have quarterbacks. Now, I think this year's draft class is going to be quarterback heavy. I think 2027's draft class is going to be even more quarterback heavy. So there's going to be a couple opportunities for you to get a quarterback, and the Browns should really keep an eye on these opportunities, while also keeping an eye on the players they've already invested in. But, yeah, I agree with you. There's no need to rush it. Even if you draft a quarterback next year, these guys are still going to have to start, right? Gabriel or Sanders more than likely. And you do have a golden opportunity if you hit on one of these guys to add more talent around them to maximize them to do the Jalen Hurts thing. So the Browns have a lot of flexibility here. I would like if they exercise some of that flexibility and exercise some patience here, because all I want is to, at the end of the year, feel like, hey, we gave Dylan Gabriel a good chance to demonstrate some of what he can do and be able to evaluate that. I want to also feel the same way about Shedeur. Doesn't mean we're going to have answers on those two, but I want to at least have a good feeling on where the arrow is pointing with those guys by the end of the season. That's really my thoughts about this whole thing, right? The next take comes from Murr, who says, exactly. These are the same people, speaking of Sanders fans, who are angry at the Browns for not starting Sanders already, who called the Browns dysfunctional, want the Browns to rush a decision on 2 rookies in one season. That would be dysfunctional. QBs aren't going extinct this year. Manning might not come out. Raiola, others will likely be there in 2027. I agree. It's funny because like the people who are usually the loudest about the Browns being a dysfunctional organization, and look, there's things to suggest over the last couple of years the Browns might be dysfunctional, but the people who scream about dysfunction usually are the people who are screaming and advocating for the Browns to do dysfunctional shit. And in my like observing, as somebody who's put videos out on a consistent basis for 5 years that Browns fans have commented on. I've looked at like millions of comments over the last 5 years. And this is a trend that I see, is that people usually who get most wrapped up and angry and hopped up on dysfunction are the people suggesting straight up dysfunctional stuff, right? Like firing your coach in the middle of the season. A lot of these people who are like, oh, the Browns are dysfunctional, also want the Browns to fire the coach in the middle of the season, which is also straight up dysfunctional, right? And then the Browns will fire the coach in the middle of the season, do what they wanted them to do, and then they'll call that dysfunctional. Say all of this to say, people just be mad, and dysfunctional is one of those terms they use to express that anger. It doesn't mean that the Browns should really listen to what some of these people want the Browns to do, because they just want the Browns to be better at football, right? They don't really have a real plan on how to make the Browns better at football. They're just mad that the team's not better, and they just want the team to be better. And if the team starts winning games, people start talking less about dysfunction. But yeah, I have noticed that when people talk about dysfunction, they're usually suggesting obscenely dysfunctional stuff. Especially with the Shador thing. I saw somebody call the Browns dysfunctional for not wanting to start Shador immediately. I'm like, hey, if the Browns decided after 2 weeks of minicamp to start Shador Sanders, this would be one of the most dysfunctional organizations of all time. Like what in the world would possess you to do that? Before pads come on, we just going to announce somebody as a starter? That is crazy. But that would legitimately make some of these people who are calling the Browns dysfunctional right now happy. My favorite comment is from Brand, who says, you said spant and then corrected yourself into spunt. Yes. Yes, I did. What's the problem? What's the problem? Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.